Welcome to episode 8 of You've Probably Never Heard of Me, the podcast dedicated to shining a light on underground artists, creators, and changemakers that the algorithm keeps skipping over. I'm your host, Ryan Allen. I'm a Detroit-based musician who's spent 2 decades playing in bands like Thunderbirds Are Now, Extra Arms, Big Life, and Speed Circuit. I've made lots of records in my time, but more importantly, I've met a lot of really talented people along the way that maybe you don't know about or maybe you should know more about. So that's what we're here to fix. My guest today is my friend Joe Phillips, singer and guitarist of Detroit band Touch the Clouds. If you know the Detroit and Southeast Michigan scene from the late 90s and early 2000s, you know the resume of his band, Joe, as well as Darrin Hunt and Brian Galindo, all played together in a band called Few and Far Between, while their bass player, Nikkie Margosian-Galindo, played in a band called Lovesick back in the day. And various members have played in other really amazing bands like King for a Day and much more over time. But fast forward to 2013 when Touch the Clouds formed. They leaked some singles over the last few years, but their debut album finally came out in March 2025. It's 15 songs of emotional, dynamic, and anthemic indie rock that fans of Sunny Day Real Estate, Superchunk, and early Foo Fighters will surely love. Joe and I have known each other since we were both got our start playing music in the Detroit indie scene in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I'm really excited to dig into his band's history and story, as well as his own story too. So thank you very much for being on the show, Joe. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm excited.
Of course. Well, let's go to the beginning. I like to just set a little context. Just talk about how you first kind of got into music and what were your first experiences like playing in bands.
For me, music kind of starts like in the womb. My mom sang in a choir, and
Okay.
my parents played a lot of music when I was young. Motown was huge. Beatles were huge. Um, Beach Boys, Bob Seger. So there's always
Mhm.
something going on musically, whether it's, listening to albums or 8 tracks early on with my dad or going to see concerts and things like that, of more classical style things early on. So I've always kind of been immersed in it. I
Mhm.
started playing guitar at 6, and then like
Oh,
I
wow.
saw my
Okay.
uncle, my yeah, just kind of noodling around. I'd seen my uncle play. He played like in a wedding band when
All
I was a
right.
kid, and I remember going to a practice, and it was in a basement, and they had a
Mhm.
PA, and they were
Mhm.
they were loud, and it was awesome. And I was like, that seems like something I want to get involved in. So really
Mhm.
early on, I had kind of this framework for like what a good band would be like, and like, tight
Okay.
situation and
Yeah.
like a good space to record in. So that
Mhm.
was kind of my North Star. And I didn't start really playing until like with other people till about high school. Um,
Okay. So were you playing from age 6 until high school, or did you kind of just dabble, or like what was the
I
commitment
was
level of a 6-year-old guitar player?
Well, it's weird because like I'm singing in a choir too at that time. So I started
Okay.
singing like probably at a similar time in a kids choir, and then that kind of became a serious focus of mine, like for trying to sing and stay in key and on pitch and all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff was an early thought of mine. And I won a couple scholarships early on to like go to like a small 2-week course at Interlochen for a couple summers, and had a
Okay.
chance to kind of like dabble more into like the classical vocal experience. And it wasn't until I got into high school where I started to kind of break away from, like you do, and start to explore my own what music was, that I fell into like my first
Right on.
band in that regard.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
were hanging out with Jewel, of course, at Interlaken,
Yes,
yodeling
saving
and
souls.
yeah, yeah. No, that's super interesting. I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that you started that early, but I do think like knowing you for as long as I've known you and seeing you perform, play, sing, like, you have a really like engaging, powerful voice. So it makes sense that that's something that you've been doing kind of similar to like how athletes, are sort of like start young and perfect what they're doing as they age. Like I would imagine there was a similar commitment for you, like growing up, that like this is something that like you wanted to get good at and you wanted to like devote your time to, because you can see how it pays off now. But I mean, you work you're like a working musician in a way, so um So yeah, I can understand and that and sort of identify how that early start kind of transcended into what you're doing now. But um when did you first start kind of like, you said high school is when you first started playing in bands. Like what was your first like band experience like?
My first band experience was I had a class. I forget what it was, but like a civics class, a law
Uh,
class, or something of that nature in ninth grade with John Miller, who is another musician in the scene who's played with a number of bands. But we kind of were interested in the same type of music, and for us,
mhm,
that was like, grunge had just started to hit the scene for us. So it's kind of in that vein of
mhm,
interest for us. We started to play together and got some more friends. Gary Nino, Brian Kennedy were like the first kind of foundational people. And then we had a situation with drummers that was kind of, very Spinal Tappy, where we had
mhm.
three or
We all
four
do.
different people over a short time. Dave Shetler was probably the last person in that band that
Oh,
played with
okay.
us. So it was really cool. It was an awesome experience. At that time, like Arun and Rodrigo are at school with me. They have a band called
Hmm.
Fish Guy.
Hmm.
We're playing the same time at like Mosquito Club and things like that. And just,
Hmm.
it was a really active scene that we were fortunate enough to be part of at such a young age. So, it really quickly got into um, setting up shows and doing performances and thinking about merch much more than just kind of like playing. I see a lot
Right.
of bands that start and just kind of play house parties or whatever, and it's
Hmm.
awesome and cool, but it doesn't have kind of like that commercial focus, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So it's like it quickly became a thing that I wanted to kind of start up as an engine that just kind of was able to do its thing over time.
And what was the name
If
of
that makes
that
sense.
band?
First band was Veneration,
Okay. Okay. Cool. I think that
which we
for
got
some
from, it's
reason,
like the back of a Pearl Jam Vitalogy
hell yeah, you did.
like lyric book that were, oh hell yeah, yes I did.
Yeah.
Yes, you and I admittedly fans of the Jam.
I'm a Peach guy, you know. People
Yeah, hell
people
yeah,
hate on them, but I think that they're wrong. So fuck those people.
I agree. That's
But
right.
okay, so I mean I would say like had a similar kind of like trajectory up into that point, where we're around the same age, and there really is something in the water. I don't know what it is, and for people listening that, don't really have a context for this, like you grew up pretty much in a similar areas to me. I grew up in a city called Livonia. You grew up, I believe,
Mhm.
in Plymouth or Canton, one of
Plymouth.
those.
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
Plymouth Canton High School, super gigantic high school. That's where you went to high school, I assume, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah. So,
Yes. Proud Rock.
and that high school had like a radio station, and there was like, I don't know, there was like, I think a roadmap or
It was
some
very
kind
much
of,
like a college campus.
yeah,
It was
exactly.
there's like a expansive education and things for you to try out. And it wasn't like necessarily a vocational school, but they had vocational avenues. I had auto class for 2 years, and like
Mhm.
it was awesome. It was a great school for sure.
But
And
yeah,
Nikki
like back
teaches there
to,
now,
oh,
which is
sweet.
crazy.
Full circle.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and you mentioned Rodrigo, you mentioned Arun, you mentioned Dave Shetler. These are all people who've, have gone on to play, and Arun and Rodrigo
Jason
now play.
Stolzheimer.
Jason, like a lot of
Yep.
people, were bit by the bug, in that area, and certainly like made, a really like concerted effort to like take, the early sort of like inspiration of playing, like trying to emulate, the grunge bands that you liked, or the, punk bands that you were into back then, and managed to be successful in whatever way, however you define that, right? But there's
Sure.
definitely something in the water in that area, which includes people like
Well, I want to
Brian,
give a
right?
shout out. Speaking of that area, like one thing that I've told Rodrigo before, but like Rodrigo moved from New York in
Right,
high school, I believe, like just as he
right.
started high school. So I remember early on, he would tell us about these bands like, Quicksand and Shift and all
Mhm.
this
Shelter.
New York vibe stuff. Yeah, Shelter, 108, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And his stories were always so exciting that made you kind of want to reach out and see what else was out there and what other kind of
Mhm.
scenes were happening. So it kind of gave me another framework than just like this the stereotypical Detroit experience, which is
Right.
awesome and I love and want to own, but also at that time being able to see something and have it be so impactful across the board was just another kind of log on the fire of inspiration. So shout out to Rodrigo.
Absolutely. What a amazing dude. And like still loves music, like with a passion that like, some people kind of fall out of. I know you and I share that same thing, but yeah, those
Totally.
guys are all great. But I was gonna kind of like transition into, early days of Fubes because
Yeah.
um, you know, people like Brian and Darrin, I would throw in that, kind of like pool of people around that time who, were in previous bands, Brian playing in Hamilton, for example, Darrin playing in King for a Day and other bands before that. So when you guys kind of like first came on the scene, like to me, it was like already this like sort of like a super group. I was like, oh, I know that guy from that band and this person from that band. But talk to me kind of how about how that band came together. What was the inspiration behind it? Just give me the whole kind of like beginning story of Few and Far Between.
Yeah, so okay. After high school, after playing in Veneration, I started playing in a band called Corel,
Okay.
with Scott Brandon and my friend Bruce Bain. Shout out to Bruce. He gave me him and I have this connection. You can't even see it, this copper cup.
There
He
you go.
sends me engraved cups and I broke the glass one, so now I have a copper one. I
Safer.
digress. Anyways, and John Fitchett and we
Hmm.
John and I really kind of hit it off, and we're starting to explore kind of more of that indie emo vibe of things. And Scott was just an amazing guitar player, an amazing writer, but he started to kind of want to do other things, and he ended up
Hmm.
moving. And it was just, a typical dissolution of a band. Nothing bad, nothing anything other than just life kind of happening at that moment.
Right.
So from there, John and I were looking kind of, what are we going to do? We're going to keep this band going, that moment. And he invited me to a party and Brian Galindo was there. And it was the
Hmm.
first time I met him in the basement. I think we were 18 at that point in
Hmm.
time. And it was kind of like, yeah, Brian plays drums, Joe plays and sings, and let's see what we can kind of do together. And what are you into? And I remember the first thing that we both kind of locked on to was Charlie from Chamberlain, the drummer of
Hmm.
Chamberlain, was like his style for us at that time was amazing. It was both like
Hmm.
you had the older hardcore aspect, and then you had kind of
Hmm.
the new stuff at the time of like Moon My Saddle, so it was a little bit
Hmm.
more in the pocket Americana drumming, but yet
Hmm.
still completely him and still had all of these elements that link it together and make it cohesive, right? So from
Hmm.
our standpoint, Brian and I are really into dynamics, and that's something
Hmm.
I think Few and Far Between did really well. And
Absolutely.
that was kind of the genesis of that moment is like, wow, you like this band and you like this particular style, and we're going to be able to play with that a lot. And so that was kind of like where we said, yes, we should get together. I think he's probably playing with Charlie at that time. I forget.
Hmm.
Brian, is in a lot of bands. I think Hamilton was playing at that time. So he was kind of
Hmm.
reaching out and seeing what's going on. I think the first couple practices we had, we were like, no, this is kind of feeling right. Feels progressive for us, and we've just kind of been locked ever since. But Few and Far Between was like very organic, I'd say, and unexpected. We weren't really trying to do anything at that point in time, but when it clicked, we just felt really great. And then we were looking for a bass player, and John said, "Hey, I know Darrin. Maybe we can try to convince him to see what's up." And I
Hmm.
forget exactly if we had arranged it or we ran into him, but we used to go to a bar in Plymouth before we'd practice, and Darrin was there reading a book at the bar, which is so
Naturally.
Darrin.
Hmm.
And we asked if we wanted to jam. He came down and jammed, and like at that moment, all four of us just kind of knew it was the thing, and that's kind of where it took off. And we made a good run in it. It was fun.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of era, I was in a band called Red Shirt Brigade kind of around that same time, and that sort of transitioned into Thunderbirds Are Now, and kind of went in a slightly different like direction and scene, but like I was still, like a kid from Livonia who was like, wanted to go see my friend Brian's new band or whatever, and so, you know, I remember when Few and Far Between sort of like started to really pick up some traction, like my first impression was like these they're like on another, there's like a level and then there's another level where I don't want to use the word professional because that like doesn't really do it justice. It's just very well put together, considered. The Chamberlain thing I think makes a lot of sense where, there was like there was an underlying aggression to the band, in terms of like it rocked and you guys were, a presence live and you could feel it when you were in the crowd. And then sort of coupled with that more kind of grandiose, bigger kind of beauty, your voice and Brian's drumming being so kind of like dynamic, like you were saying. And
Butterfly-ish.
yeah, very butterfly. I mean, that's a really great, kind of visual and analogy because he has this kind of flow to how he plays, which is very like liquidy, like it's kind of got
It's
this like
totally liquidy.
almost like like um Tai Chi, almost like kind of like
Couldn't agree more.
mystic kind of thing happening. It's magical, and I think you both kind of almost bring that sort of like floating, like on top of the thing, vibe to what you do, if that makes any sense. Which Touch the
Oh,
Clouds is like such an appropriate name for your current band, but just the power, the dynamics, the interlocking and interplay between the band. I feel like you guys really showed a lot of other people how to do it, around here. Like it was like if you played with Few and Far Between or
oh,
they were playing
thanks.
the show, it was kind of like, oh, like those dudes are good, like they're good at this. And I just want to commend you for, kind of like presenting it in that way because it really made, I think, other people around you better too.
Dude, thank you, man. That's a
Yeah,
that's
of
a huge
course.
compliment.
Well,
Thank you.
I mean,
We we
maybe I
tried.
was lying.
Well, hey, I got a question for you. So did when did Red Shirt Brigade start? Because I remember playing with you guys at the Chicken Shack early
Hmm.
on. It might have been 99, it might have been
Yep.
2000.
Yeah.
But how long was that band going on
That
prior
started my
prior to me being aware?
freshman year of college, so it would have been like 98 for
Okay,
me. So yeah, freshman year, like maybe like halfway through the year we started. So like second semester, I kind of like finally got the courage to talk to other people and ask them what kind of music they liked. And that
right.
band, I want to say that was like a 2.5, 3 year at the most excursion. Like we were we were done around the time I was graduating from college. So um, but we were on that like Elkion Records Reveal
Oh
the
yeah, yep.
Character compilation, I think.
That's right. Yep. Totally.
And we were playing some of those shows, we were kind of like we were sort of trying to figure out like where we fit in, and so we were playing with everybody, so but that was like what
It's
was so
funny that you
cool
mentioned
about
that
that
because
time.
like when you say like when you say that we had a professionalism to us, I'm kind of taken aback by that in some ways because I kind of think that our whole scene had a professionalism about it, right? And I was always trying to reach towards something else, so I wasn't really thinking about like was what we were doing any good, more of
Hmm.
like where can we go,
Hmm.
totally not being present at the moment, right? But I I think that like that's one cool thing about our scene that's tough to explain to a lot of people when you talk about like, yeah, I play in a band, yeah, we come see the show or whatever, is that there was a lot of people trying to really put on a good show, not just to entertain you too, right? But to like express something. And that was palpable. And I think that
Hmm.
like we all kind of did that together and learned different aspects from each other at the same time. So
Yeah, no,
kudos to you too,
well, thanks, man. Well, I'm curious to talk about that time and that era because I think there was kind of a handful of things happening simultaneously, right? Like you had this kind of like underground burgeoning like electronic music scene that was kind of like centered around Hamtramck and like there was that like DJ culture really kind of like starting to
Mhm.
really happen then you had obviously like the garage stuff going on with the Stripes and Von Bondies and some of these bands. And then kind of then you maybe, around the same time or a little bit afterwards, you had this sort of like Detroit indie scene, and all of those scenes began, earlier than maybe, Red Shirt Brigade and Few and Far Between when we sort of appeared. But like in a way, I mean, you had like the Zoots thing happening, and
Mhm.
these sort of like DIY shows happening at the coffee shops, the grounds. And, there was kind of that like everybody's wearing, uh brown thrift store pants with like, Doc Martens and like a sweater vest maybe, or, a cardigan for
The look.
sure. The
Yeah.
look was like well defined. But then like a couple years went by and people started to like that sort of started to dissipate a little bit, I feel like, and some of our bands or our next bands were like starting to play the Magic Stick, starting to open for bigger bands, like the sort of DIY nature of it. It still existed for sure, but
Mhm.
it got a little bit like more kind of like, how can we start touring? How can we, and the internet and some of that stuff kind of happened around the same time. So what was it like for you kind of stepping, having been in a few bands beforehand, starting this new band with people who, were also from prior bands that like had some like notoriety, and, a group of friends who would come see them, like starting to kind of build this essentially like a scene of like-minded, similar aged bands. Like what was your experience like kind of, being a part of that back then in the late 90s, early 2000s?
I loved it. That was the era of like the book your own fucking life kind of
Hmm.
thing. And I know Vanessa Jones helped us
Hmm.
book like some stuff around the country. We hit it off really well at the Strider out of New
Yeah,
York,
right.
and
Yeah.
we did a lot of stuff with them on the East Coast that was pretty awesome. Christensen was a band from
Hmm.
Kentucky that we linked up with quite often. So there's like, a bunch of little circuits that you do, as you know, you'd run out to different areas. Uh, we never really went out on anything too epic. It was probably like a
Hmm.
week, 2 weeks here and there. But it was a lot of fun and it felt much different than it does today. I mean, for obvious reasons, right? But
Sure.
the whole experience was just, it seemed like even at that level of sleeping on friends' couches and playing, VFW halls, it seemed like there
Hmm.
was a way forward and it seemed exciting and there was like a lot of people and it felt like a traditional kind of minstrel circuit. Like it just felt
Yeah.
like there was this thing happening and that I was just very fortunate and very happy to be able to kind of get into that slipstream for a little while. It felt
Yeah.
fun and it felt like something you could do on your own, which is I think the biggest difference now. I mean, that's not just my age speaking. I think it's like
Hmm.
the amount of venues that put on these types of events for people at an affordable price, they're kind of dried up. So it's just a different
Right.
animal out there now.
Yeah. I agree. And, I think of those times fondly too. And what I'm kind of curious about, and we can kind of move on from few and far between because I want to talk about, current stuff as well. But um, like, did you feel accepted? Did you feel appreciated back then? Did you even think about those things, or were you kind of just like, I'm focused on like writing the best songs I can write and like doing the best shows we can do? Like, was that something that you guys felt like you strive for? Is at least like locally, maybe, because when you leave the confines of your home state, like you lower your expectations and then everything becomes kind of like awesome because, if 20
Yeah,
people
yeah.
come see you in Toledo or and 30 people see you in Memphis or something, it's like, whoa, how the hell does
Yeah,
30
yeah, right.
people know about? But like
Yeah.
locally, I'm curious because you guys I kind of always viewed you as like the best of all of the sort of the emo adjacent bands from that time from here, you know? But did you feel appreciated? Did you feel kind of like you were accepted into like a bigger scene or a thing?
I think that like in general, it's a complicated collage of
Hmm.
feelings. I think on one hand, obviously we were accepted because we were playing places and drawing people. So I mean, like
Right.
there's a fact that I have to look at and say, yeah, I think we were accepted to some level. But I think we're all kind of like shy and perhaps overthinkers by nature. I think that we didn't really feel part of anything in particular outside of friends. Like we felt part of
Right.
a friend group, but when it came to the musicality of our band, we just felt that we're slightly adjacent. Like we play well with a lot of different types of bands,
Mhm.
right? But it's tough to find like the exact match of styles,
Right.
which is cool. I'm totally fine with that, especially now. It makes me excited to be able to play with so many different types
Yeah.
of bands. But I
Well,
think
I
that,
think
when that was going on, it was kind of a weird thing. Where is our place?
yeah. Well, and I think we shared like a similarity because we both kind of were connected to like the Dave Feeney universe, which was sort of like the like connecting piece between like some of our bands that were maybe more on the indie or like, kind of like emo, like mathy, whatever kind of even like power pop vibe
Mhm,
versus some of the garage bands, where we would play, those sounds and spirits like things. You
mhm.
guys played those too,
I
at
think,
least
yeah.
once, right?
Yep, right.
But like, we could like use that like kind of connecting piece to kind of like dip our toes into like the other scenes that existed, and I think we
Mhm,
both kind of had that like experience where it was like normally we wouldn't even be playing with these bands, but because there's this person or these people or this like whether it's a studio or a venue or what have you, where you kind of like end up crossing paths anyway. um
mhm.
it almost like it like excuses or accepts or approves of this like cross pollination that might not happen otherwise.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we've played shows with people that are singer-songwriters all the way up to Cold as Life. So
Right.
it's like, it's like
Yeah,
both ends of the spectrum.
yeah,
There's something that we can
yeah,
kind of get in on all those vibes, which I think is awesome. I think that to me that makes me happy because it means that I'm able to speak a lot of musical languages, and
yeah,
that's
totally,
something that I want to be good at because I think musical language is just as important as English or
absolutely.
anybody else's spoken language, in the fact that like it helps me talk to so many people.
Hmm.
When I lived in New York, and there's a lot of people I wasn't able to speak with. I worked with a lot of people in restaurants that spoke only Spanish, but music was a
Hmm.
great connector between us, and I think that it's important for us all
I
to
couldn't
learn
agree
that
with you.
language.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, that's a good segue actually, because after Few and Far Between, had your run, this would have been probably like 2011, maybe 20, like, well, maybe
Yeah,
I'm a little off, but the band ends or the band sort of splinters, and
we're on ice.
yeah, I mean, do you consider the band still like active? Even, I mean, I know you played, the release show for the re-release of
I
three,
I
right?
do. I do. I think we all do in some
Okay,
way,
that's
shape, or
cool.
form, and I think that, like, what does that mean? I don't
Hmm.
know. It just means that, like, every once in a while we all talk regularly,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
communication
yeah.
is weird. But as far as shows, logistically, it's just very difficult.
Right.
And
Because
we're
Derek
able, with
lives in, yeah, New York, right?
yeah, which I didn't mention. So for the continuity of your podcast, at some point in time,
Thank you.
we part ways with John Fitchett, and we end up acquiring Derek Lee, who was just a great person to fit in the role at the time, and was able to record 3 with us, and has been with us since. And he has since gone on to be an extraordinary engineer and producer.
Hmm.
You can Google his credits, but he's just busy all the time, and it's awesome. And it makes, plus he lives in another state, and it
Right.
makes the logistics of getting together more difficult than anybody wants it to be. But I think that when the moment is right, we're all happy to do stuff, and we still have some things like in the vault that we don't know how to necessarily complete, but we've
Hmm.
been chopping away at things in the background. So
That's
whether
cool,
that
man.
ever comes out or anything, I don't know. But man, it's definitely, I got it tattooed here. I mean, it's bros for life.
Hell yeah. Well, and that's not to like go off on too many tangents, but that's something that I've always like respected about you and the projects that you're involved with is like the people that you play music with really truly seem like family to you. And
Yeah.
you can like really tell that there's like a deep connection between you and the people that you play with, and there's an emotional tie that is so important to the music,
Yeah.
that without it, it wouldn't be the same, and so
Yeah.
I just, I think it's important to like recognize those things when you recognize them, because I don't think people say and observe and speak those things out loud maybe enough, as much as they should. But I do think it's like such a hugely important part to the chemistry of a great band. So and that goes for all your projects. Well, so let's
I
get
agree.
to
Thank you.
yeah, of course. Let's get to Touch the Clouds. So the few and far between kind of dies down, we'll call it. You
Yeah,
move,
sure.
correct?
I moved early. I moved in 2006, and then
Okay.
I moved back to Detroit in 2012. So,
Okay.
we still were kinda active
Right,
in
right.
those New York years,
And
and
I
it was
remember
easier
you
when
would
Derek
come
and I
home
both lived there.
sometimes. I remember you
Yes.
would come home and play some shows like during the holidays and stuff like that, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Was that
Yes.
yeah, okay. My memory's a little fuzzy because
Oh, sure.
I abused
Whose isn't?
alcohol then.
Yes.
Now I
Yes.
just abuse weed. But anyway,
Yeah.
the the sort of like transition from those like sporadic days into saying like I want to start like another thing. Like talk me through
Mhm.
how that happens.
Uh, Living in New York is like a very different, um, league all on its own when it
Hmm.
comes to playing shows or practicing or playing with people. I mean, it really requires a lot of calculus or luck, whether you're gonna, you know, find the right place to practice, find the time that works for everybody when you got crazy
Right.
schedules, are the trains working? Um, so when I moved back, I forgot if we did a few and far between thing before I moved back, perhaps. But there was something where we were talking in a room about maybe getting back to jamming and seeing what that was like. And so then when I moved back, Darren and I just, he was one of the first people who came back or came by when I moved back, and we just jammed forever. And
Hmm.
Brian said he was into it and he wanted to do something with Nikki. We love Nikki. We're like, let's do it, man. It seemed like an easy thing to do. Obviously, the components are like you said, it's a family thing, so it felt
Hmm.
correct. Um, and I think Darren and I wrote like 20-ish demos and threw a bunch at them, and then
Hmm.
kind of bounced off the ones that worked, and that kind of helped us hone what it was that we were going to, try to aim towards. Yeah, so that's like 2012, 2013. We do some recording here, have Derek mix it, and then yeah, just start playing. And
Yeah.
it's kind of been we've been on and off ever since. And I don't mean like we stopped, but um I think one of the things that makes playing music at this point in time great for us all is that we don't have to adhere to anybody's rules about anything. So
Right.
that
Right.
includes our own, and it means that we can kind of break the idea that you have to do this and you have to play this
Right.
many times a month and you have to have this many shows. And we've really tried to stop thinking about everything on the outside and really just focus on, if I come over to the Galindo's house, is that fun? You know?
Hmm.
And when Darren left to pursue academics,
Hmm.
about I forget when he left, 2022 perhaps?
I was gonna say like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
About almost 4. But,
Yeah.
when we got Jay Lee, Derek's brother, to fill in on guitar, you have this
Hmm.
weird few and far between Touch the Clouds overlap there. He is the same type of person, so the machine is still able to function on an emotional level, and then now with Brandon Trammell joining us, the last year, it's been awesome, man. He brings the right amount of energy, and again, it's like there's alchemy that happens with these people that we kind of trust each other, and it's really about that state that we can all get in together to open
Hmm.
the musical portal. You know what this
Hmm.
is like. I mean, it's the type of moments where you can close your eyes and be playing and kind of forget where you are for X amount of seconds at least.
Yeah.
Minutes, whatever it is, and to feel that the music you're playing is doing something more, at least to us, than just singing a tune. There's some kind of physical, emotional alchemy that happens, and the right people definitely allow that to happen or don't, in my personal experience.
Oh yeah. And I think that like everything you just said really does shine through in the songs and in the performance of the band. Like um if I was like to describe your band to somebody, I might like I know I like referenced some other bands earlier, specifically whether you think those
Mhm.
are like applicable
No, I
or
think
not,
that's
willing to be
no, I
argued with.
think you're spot on.
But I think I would describe it more like I would describe a painting, honestly, where there's these very broad strokes that are also like kind of like juxtaposed with these like sharp, like punching sort of like moments of color, that like really like meld together in this really like engaging way. And I can say that like a great litmus test for a great band is if my 71-year-old dad turns to me at a show and says, "This guy's real fucking good," like, which the last show we played together, he did
Dude, your
do.
dad
And
rules,
so,
man.
yeah,
He
he
came up.
knows.
We had a great conversation, man. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, no, I actually got to get him on the show because I think that would be a fun conversation. But, um, and I would also
Yeah.
talk to him like other times, not on a
No,
podcast. Like I just
I'm
talk to him
totally
whenever,
interested.
you know. Um,
Right, but I mean, like, that's actually I would like to put that I would like to put the request in for that because your dad and you and your brother, you guys have this musical presence, and I think
mhm.
it should be, discussed a little more
All
because
right,
it's unique.
we'll drop the idea in the idea bucket.
Yeah,
There
okay.
we go. I'll add a little cha-ching sound later. But no, I think that there's something to like appealing to somebody who's kind of like heard it all, seen it all, and they can still feel that, like it, kind of like drawn into what you guys do just because it is so, I think, like engaging in this like really authentic way, you know,
Yeah,
that, there is no pretense to it. It's just like this kind of sound and these songs are kind of flowing into us and out of us in this like really, you know, fantastical, fun, cool way, powerful and just dynamic way. So I'm not here to
that's
like,
totally right, and
kiss
one of
your
the things that's
ass, but
weird but it's a weird thing to talk about each other, so thank you for being polite. But
yeah.
I will say this though, like, that, like, the thing that I think our genre maybe struggles with more, and perhaps our band in particular struggles more with, is there's like this again, it's like an ephemeral kind of quality to
Mhm.
everything, and when it presents itself, it's amazing, but it doesn't always present itself. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
it's one of those things like when you're recording, you can spend as much time as you want to get it right to make sure it has everything. You can do take 85 if you need to,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
But live, it's one and done. And I think that like that's always been a challenging thing for me. And it's one of the things that perhaps gives me the most anxiety about performing, especially getting older and just, like you mentioned earlier about the athleticism of singing, which I all about. And it's
Mhm.
like just in general, accepting that uh my voice has been used for 48 years and it's like,
Mhm.
it's different than it is
Yeah.
and it doesn't
Yeah. Yeah.
want to go as high as it used to and all those kind of
You're right.
things in addition to the physicalness of it. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's like it's cool.
Well,
It's cool to
it's like
age and to keep doing it.
it's a little like arm wrestling yourself, where like there's never going to be a winner or a loser. It just
Yeah.
is. And like I think that, as you get older and as you age and I mean, I think this I said it maybe to somebody else on a different episode, but like it's like the only thing that like you can get better at over time that it like people think is lamer the longer you do it. You know what I mean? Like just in general, right? Like where it's just like, like you look at like there's people, I won't say you, I will say there are some people who look at Mick Jagger and are like mortified and embarrassed for this person. And there's other people who are like, what else is he gonna do? Like he loves this. This is his like identity, And it doesn't matter how old he is. If he can do it, do it. You know what I mean?
But dude,
So,
I think that that's a great North Star for like the way to feel in general, which is like, who gives a
mhm,
fuck, right? Like
right.
people are still paying to see Mick Jagger, whether I give a shit about him or not. I
Yeah.
do like Mick Jagger, but you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Just in general, it's like, I admire that quality in people. And I've gone through my own ebbs and flows with like,
Hmm.
kick out the jams, motherfucker. It's your time is done. But I
Right.
think that like if you're enjoying it and you're having a good time, or whoever that is, Paul McCartney's having a great time,
Dude, I
what's it to
mean,
you?
Bob Mould, I don't know if you've seen him,
Yeah.
but like, he's 66, 67 years old and just ripping. I mean, ripping. Like it's
And
like
still making me want to be like him. You know what I mean? Like I'm
exactly.
not
It's
sad
so
for him.
inspiring. It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go back to something you said because you mentioned this kind of like concept of like making and breaking our own rules. Essentially, like we can kind of
Yep.
do this in the way we want to do it. There's no pressure. That all being said, it took you, I don't want it to sound like it took you, but like from the inception of the band to the release of this record, that's about 10, 11 years, right?
Yeah.
Of time that sort of has spanned. And I'm curious, like, what took you so long? Not in a
Yeah, right.
critical way, just like what's the story behind the amount of time, and do you give a shit?
Very fair question. I do give a shit.
Yeah.
I think that so we released a single, we released 2 4-song EPs, and
Hmm.
then we put together some stuff, and then we release an album. Part of that goes back to the ebb and flow of time and playing and schedules
Hmm.
not aligning. So there's a
Right.
dip in activity between us that accounts for some of that. A lot of that though, dude, honestly accounts it's me. I take fucking forever.
Hmm.
I don't do the lyric situation where you sit down at a typewriter and write something beautiful and then try to sing it. There are
Okay.
lyricists that I admire and I wish I had that ability. But for me, the the musical component comes first, and I hear the melodies that work, and then certain melodies need to work with certain words more than I feel certain words need to work with certain melodies.
Hmm.
Yet, I'm really critical. So
Hmm.
I don't wanna just phone it in. I want to make a song that if I put it out, I feel is a song. That doesn't mean that it has
Hmm.
to sound perfect or any of that stuff. It just
Yeah.
has to be lyrically something that I say, I'm happy that other people see that and they can judge me however they want on that.
Hmm.
And it takes me a long time and I do things in a really non-linear way. I
Okay.
reach into the past a lot. There's a song that I'm working on. So Brandon Trammell came over a couple months ago and I had been thinking about a song that I had wrote a verse out of nowhere like 10 years ago. And
Hmm.
it just started popping into my head and I was like,
Hmm.
let's try this out.
Yeah.
It jived with him and we wrote something new. So that's like that took a long time. I have one verse and like a chorus and now trying to go back and fill in the second and third verse is the challenge for me.
Right.
I'm trying to be
Just throw it
better
in
at it. I'm
Chat
trying to play
GPT,
word
man.
games.
Just
I
drop it
know,
in.
man. I should just move on.
Just have the bots do it for you.
But you
Just
know, man,
kidding.
it's
Don't
like
do that.
it's poetry, so it's
Yeah.
tough because just like the music, I want it to come from someplace else, and I want, although probably by definition contrived, I don't want it to be
Yeah.
viewed as that because I
Hmm.
don't want the time that I put in it to take away from what people enjoy about it. So I'm trying to get better at it. Getting that album off of our back was really helpful. Part of
Yeah.
it was that, we had like 5 finished songs and then a bunch of demos. So to kind of every time we'd uncover something new, it's like, oh, well, maybe we could just, let's put another one. Oh, but it turned into an album, which, elongated the process, but
Hmm. Well,
it
I
took a
think,
while. I'm trying to get better.
yeah. I mean, I think it was worth the wait, and it was worth the time and it was worth the sort of like, uh, a special extra attention to the details, like that doesn't, and it doesn't surprise me. Like, I think again, when I see you live or, listen to that record, like there's a real consideration to like how all the parts work together melodically, dynamically, things playing off each other, things, the rising and falling of the energy, there's just, again, there's like consideration to these things without it being like overly produced. Like there's not like a million bells and whistles on it. It sounds like a band in a room for the most part, and I think that's cool
Yeah.
about it too. And the tonality of things is really, really clear. And yeah, I just, I think, both recorded and live, the way those songs present, it's the interlockingness of parts and the consideration that you take is super impressive to me. And sometimes that just takes a while, and
Yeah,
again,
right.
like the end result is something I think, you should be super proud of. So,
Thank you.
one, I wanted to kind of like piggyback a little bit off of sort of something you sort of said, like alluding to like the lyrics, and I think I read like a quote that said the record's about time, change, and the weight of modern life is kind of like
Mhm.
a pull quote there. Like, can you expand on that a little bit, maybe with a few songs that you feel kind of like exemplify that that sort of motif?
Yeah. I think that like being a dad has changed me
Yeah.
tremendously, and I think
Hmm.
that this record for me was kind of a softening of a lot of things, just personally. And again, those may not all show up lyrically, but emotionally working through a lot of that stuff. I felt, I don't know, I just felt really emo. I felt life, and I felt a lot of things, and I was trying to write lyrics that I could leave behind and
I
have
love that. I
them
love that.
mean something,
Hmm.
so I think like a couple thing like Be Patient is a song that for me, I'm trying to speak to my kids about the ebbs and flows and the slow, uh, glacial pace of life, right?
Hmm.
I've seen so much, and so have you, and we're not really that old, but we've seen so much, and I feel like
Hmm.
I just wanna give the kids or whoever's listening to that a head start on, the better qualities of life.
Sure. No,
And
I love
so,
that.
it's really more, I mean, I'm deep into Zen, so it's like
Hmm.
got a lot of Eastern thought in it.
Hmm.
And, I don't know, I think that that is kind of Be Patient is probably encapsulates the most what I mean. From the Heart is a track that I had forever. It was just something that I had done, um, at home, and it was kind of semi-electronic, and Brian really liked it, so we ended up, getting it onto the album. I was
Yeah.
trying to get lyrics done, and my son came down and had a problem. I forgot what it was at that time, but he was crying to me, and we took care of it, and it was at that moment I was writing lyrics, so kind of like though
Hmm.
that moment's kind of like in the song, which
Yeah.
that's what I love about like actually recording music, is putting as much of whatever's happening around you into that. So when I listen back to it, I'm not just thinking about like, man, what a killer fucking guitar tone, dude.
Hmm.
Hits those mids really nice.
Right. Right. Right.
I'm thinking about the experience that led me to that. And again, that's what the music for me is like. It's a vehicle that my emotions get to kind of hang out in for a little bit.
Yeah, dude. No, I mean, I love everything you said, and I can agree more. Like being a father myself, like the sort of legacy you're leaving. Like I think about it all the time. In fact, I wrote a song about it on my one of my solo records. Is that when I'm gone, like he can hopefully, if we get out of this fucking mess, he could pull, a song of mine up on the internet and hear my voice,
Right.
hear me sing something about him, even,
Exactly.
and he can play it for, hopefully if he wants to have children, and does have children, he can play it for them, be like, this is this guy, that made
Yeah.
me. And like, this is him
Yeah.
singing. And it's not about like, um, wanting to like haunt my son or like
No.
it's also not even it's not even about me wanting to feel remembered. It's
No, man. It's just
more
like that
that
song
like,
Coco. Remember
yeah, yeah,
me.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's
No,
it's
totally.
it's just I think it's just a love note, right? It's just
Yeah,
like
no, it
you're
is.
trying to put that time capsule there so that they can discover it and go, "Oh, man."
Because I'll
You
have that
pass on
with
the
my
emo.
I'll have that with my own dad, like I'll be able to do that. And I think that's super fucking cool. And
Yes.
it'll mean something to me, uh, even differently than it means to me now. And, I don't know if my son thinks about it, but one day I think he will. And, it's a cool thing to know that like, there is like a tangible piece that you can literally like experience of me being right there with you, because know that me singing that was probably thinking about you, at that
Yeah.
time.
Right.
So anyway,
I think it's
well,
awesome, man. It's so much more in depth than a photo or something of that. I mean, it's
yeah,
like it's magical. It's a magical way to
absolutely. It
communicate.
comes to life. It comes to life. Um, well, sort of speaking about family, you play in a band with a married couple.
Yes.
And I just think that's like super interesting, and how that, I know them and they're like the coolest, but like I am curious, like how does that impact the band in general? Like how does it impact the music? How does it impact the logistics of things sometimes? Like I'm even curious if there's things from their personal lives that can like seep into a band practice. Not that you have to like give me the dirty details, but I'm just curious how that dynamic works.
I think the thing is like because we are like family, it doesn't feel so different than like
Right. Okay.
regular home life or something, right? So
Yeah.
for me personally, I think that like it's awesome because they're the rhythm section. So
Mhm.
they get to kind of like do that thing together and kind of produce it with their significant other. I think that that's super special. I think it makes things awesome. The way that they communicate, there's the table shake I was talking about.
Oh shit.
The way that they communicate is totally unique and it's really awesome to watch. And the way that Nikki plays bass is different than any bass player I've played with before. And the
Okay.
notes that she chooses to hit are surprising sometimes. I really
Yeah. Cool.
enjoy the way that they kind of work together. And because I I know Brian so well, the way that she plays off of him is naturally connected, right?
Hmm.
So for me, it works really well. Logistically, the toughest thing I think, man, is like those moments where you say, "Let's split it 4 ways." You
Yeah.
know, I always feel like, "Ah, geez." I think that that's the biggest bummer is like that kind of, the 3 of us kind of or the 4 of us become 3 in those moments.
Right. 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 Right.
But, no, man, I think it's awesome, and I think that it makes everything better. It makes us less likely to fracture or have dumb arguments, right? I mean,
Yeah. No.
I guess
That's
everybody
cool.
always does, but I just think it's awesome. I really think it's
Yeah.
good. I don't recommend it for everybody because not everybody is as cool as the Galindos, but if you get a chance to play with them
It's
both,
yeah.
you're winning.
Yeah. No. It's I don't think. Whoa, what the fuck was that? Uh, I don't think
Poltergeist.
I don't think it's possible to be as cool as them, and I will say, my recommendation when it comes to splitting it four ways is oh, it's my dog.
Oh,
One of the things I love about doing this podcast is I'm doing it on Substack and I can't edit it. So like anything like this,
I
just
think it's
it
great.
just stays in because that's life in 2026.
I think that that's
Anyway,
better, man.
no, I do too, warts and all. Um, but yeah, no, I think that it's cool to hear that you guys kind of like um can make it work so simply and easily, and the family thing again, I think it comes across so well, and yet, the sort of guitar player role has been like revolving slightly.
Mhm.
I loved obviously like the Derek or I'm sorry, the Darrin era, was the classic era, right?
Sure.
Um, but I loved when Jay started playing because he played with no pedals and that blew my mind. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Raw dogging
and
it, yeah.
just raw dogging the shit out of everything. I loved it. And he's a funny guy. And then with Brandon now in the band, you know, you went from like a guy with literally no pedals to you who has like 1,000 pedals. And now Brandon's in the band and he's got 1,000 pedals. Well, maybe 999 pedals, but uh you're sort of you how does that open things up for you guys? Like tell me what's next. What are you kind of like aiming towards with now that the record's been out for over a year? Um like what is kind of on tap and how does Brandon's like presence kind of affect it all?
We recorded with Mark Hudson last year and started getting some stuff together. So
Okay,
we've
cool.
got eight songs we recorded, and both Darrin and Jay are on that recording.
Sweet.
And Brandon is learning his own or creating his own parts, and he's going to be on that recording too. So we're going to have
Cool.
like this pretty cool batch of tunes that'll come out soon with like kind of everybody. And
That's
it's
cool.
been
And
awesome. And I think that
oh, sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna ask,
oh no,
is Brandon writing for like a third guitar part essentially on those 8 songs that you've done?
on some of it, yes. On some of
Okay,
it,
cool.
there's an essential part that he'll play, whether that's Jay or Darren's part on the record.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, we're trying to again not worry about rules and try to make like
Right.
what's
I
the
love
coolest
that.
thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, just to see what happens. But I think with Brandon, the writing process, we're just starting to get to like a point where we're writing together. We've
Yeah.
had, I want to say like maybe 4 or 5 practices of jam recordings where we're just kind of like feeling it out.
Hmm.
I'm interested to see where we're gonna go because I feel like there's a chance he brought up Ida at one point in time,
Mm.
and we've been talking about Ida a lot lately. And
It's
with
his
him
favorite band.
singing, I think that like between him, me, and Nikki, we could maybe have some more fun with vocals and try to see what
Yeah.
happens if you
Yeah.
died the music down a little bit. So I'm curious. I don't know, and I'm open and really looking forward to seeing what kind of influence he brings because I know he can bring all of the other stuff. I've seen him do it for 30
Hmm.
years. So to both be able to kind of venture into maybe a quieter space, but yet again keep it connected, just like I was talking about Chamberlain earlier, Split Lip and Chamberlain, keeping that
Yeah, right.
connected. If we can
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
keep this connected with our elements, our quintessential elements, whatever those are, I think we'll be good.
I love that. Yeah, well, that's super exciting, and I think he's such a cool addition to the band. I'm super pumped to hear kind of what's next, and I'm pretty sure you've played some new songs. I should tell the audience, you probably already know, but my bands only play with Touch the Clouds.
That's right.
That's just the rule that we've decided. Like, we don't really want to play with any other band. They're the most fun
I will
and
say we've
cool,
had a good run this year. We've had some
dude.
awesome shows on
We
like
have.
awesome days.
And they've been really fun hangs, like on top of just like, the shows
Yes.
have been pretty well attended and, you know, good people there and bands are great or whatever. But just like hanging with you guys is so fun because we all come from the same place. We all come from this
Yeah.
sort of same like mentality and mindset of like it sort of stems out of punk and DIY and like doing things yourself and then, trying to like throw it out there to the world and see what happens. And now we're kind of in this next phase of our lives where we're parents and you know, we have these jobs and responsibilities and all this stuff, but this like draw to continue doing what we're doing and do it with like integrity and like dedication and like the, it's not just like getting together with your buds and knocking back a few beers and like playing, cover songs, which is fun. Like, don't get me wrong,
So
but like, it's not that's not the thing that we're doing, and so being around like-minded people is just like it gives you the juice, honestly, to just like keep doing this. And so
couldn't
I
agree
just
more,
want
man.
to extend my appreciation to you and your bandmates and your families and your friends that, come out and stuff because it's just like good people and I love being around you guys and it means like a lot to me to still do it with people who are doing it for the same reason as I am, honestly. So thank you
Dude,
for
100%
being
back
here.
at you, man. I'm so
Thanks.
happy that we are still able to have fun and do it at the level that we do it at, and the circumstances are still great for us, and that's fucking
100%.
cool. So thank you.
That's super cool. Well, before I let you go, I got just like a few more questions, but I did want to ask you about your day job.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want you to, if you don't have to talk about it if you're like uncomfortable, but I just think it's
Oh,
it's cool what you do, and I just think it's like sort of an interesting uh way to sort of parlay your passion into your, profession. And so like tell the audience kind of what you do for a living and a little bit about it.
sure. I am. I do all things audio. It's really kind of a smorgasbord of activities that I get to do. My official title is creative director. I find myself sometimes helping brands develop like a sonic logo and iconic sound.
Hmm.
Sometimes I help write music for commercials, 30-second, 60-second commercials, original score for that type of stuff. Um, Sometimes I'm recording voiceover for gigs, for radio spots. Um, I do a lot of work in the uh, advertising space, some in the film
Right.
space. But yeah, I'm all things audio. It's really tough because my day job is different every day. Today
Right.
I was helping record spots for Chevy.
Hmm.
And tomorrow might be Lazy Boy or something of that nature.
Right. Right. Right.
It's cool.
That's cool, man. Well, I'm jealous. Sounds fun. No, I'm just kidding. My
I
job's
I
great.
fell I fell upwards into it, man. I went to New York trying to learn how to work in a studio efficiently. I studied engineering. I really enjoyed it, but I quickly realized that like studio life was not for me because the hours are
Yeah.
just insane.
Yeah.
And I kind of fell into this, and luckily I've been able to keep going. I'm
Yeah.
quite aware that it's unique and that AI is coming for me.
Yeah. No, fuck that. Uh, it's super sick, and I'm, happy for you that you can do that sort of meld those two worlds together. I think it's super cool. Well, I do have a question. Being that it's what you do is sort of marketing and advertising adjacent, like what are your thoughts on like sort of getting the word out about your like your art, your project? Like, do you find it challenging? Like, are there things that you guys have tried to do? Like maybe the sort of like slow leak release of singles over the years, maybe it was part of just a slow drip to like a great, kind of like end reward. But like, what's your thoughts and approach to kind of just like breaking through the noise?
I've given up on any sort of strategy behind it. I mean,
Yeah.
like you mentioned earlier, like we were fortunate when MySpace was just getting up and running, and there was a lot of networking that took place there, and a lot of people that were
Hmm.
genuinely interested in music, and it was a spot where you could find out about a band and you could interact with them in a way that was new. All that kind of novelty is really kind of worn off since
Yeah.
then. And I just think that, like I've followed so many new sites, new approaches to getting your music out there, and I just I think that it's the same as it ever was in a lot of ways. There's
Hmm.
gatekeepers to the new place, good or bad, just spots you have to get into the right flow of things. And I think everything else is kind of a moot point unless you want to like put money into it. And I do not, sir. I've put
No,
enough money into
no.
it. So
I mean,
I don't
yeah, it's a net negative.
I'm doing it without that anyways. So I'm just going to continue to do it without it. I hope that
Yeah.
people continue to enjoy it and find it. I do as much as I can. I try to keep anything that we put out there at least semi interesting. Um, but beyond that, I don't have anybody to answer to. So I think that like we're just trying to have the most fun we can across the board in all arenas,
Yeah, dude.
including, hello, come look at me.
Yeah. I mean, I can obviously relate, to everything you're saying. And, we're around the same age. We've had a lot of the same experiences, and, we're
Mhm.
still at it. And I think that at a certain point, you kind of have to like, sort of let go of of trying to crack the code, and just
Yeah.
sort of, do it for the love of it, and not to say that like if you're trying to crack that code, you don't love it. Like you probably do,
No, of course.
but
I think people have different appetites
yeah.
and abilities and thresholds for things, and I just have deflated on it.
Well, and I mean, I see like there's certain like, artists or whatever, like whether they're local or not, like their shit will pop up in my, Instagram feed here and there, and it's like these sort of like either they're like lip syncing to their own songs, or they're like doing this kind of like, hi, I'm this person and here's why, and then I look at those things, and every once in a while I'm like, should I do that? And then I'm just like, no, I don't give a fuck.
It's
What are you gonna see a 46-year-old guy and be like, like, I need to
the
know more
idea
about
is
that? Like,
seductive that you should be doing more. You should be
right.
out there doing what these other
Because
people
you
do. But
can
I
if you want,
but
you know?
I think like you were talking about your dad and how your dad was saying that like if he sees something, he acknowledges it no matter
Yeah.
what it is, and
Yeah.
he'll say, I like this because X, Y, and Z. He's seen a
Yeah.
lot, he
Yeah.
knows how to judge. I like that when it comes to music too, and I want people to do the same thing with me. I don't want you to like me because I have a good quip or I, did the right kind of review or reaction video that got you to
Yeah.
subscribe to my
Yeah.
band. I think those numbers are kind of fake in a certain way for what it is that I'm looking for. I'm looking for a true connection. Like, do you pick up the message that I'm putting out there with the band? And if you do, that to me means that you'll pay attention in the way that I hope you pay attention, in the
Right.
way that
Right.
I like to pay attention
Right.
to bands that matter, like deeply, not just like, let me put it on and have a conversation with somebody, and not really pay attention to it, but like zone out to it, check it out. Where is it taking you? And I think that
Right.
that type of approach is what makes it easier to digest on my part for why am I not doing it. And I think it makes it easier for me to fall in love with bands when they really are showcasing it.
Yeah, no, I think you kind of hit on something interesting there too, because it's like, it's almost like asking the question of like, do you want somebody who is like kind of duped, so to speak, into like falling for that kind of like shit, that sort of like, let me like try to play into the algorithms, bloodlust essentially,
Yeah.
and sacrifice maybe your integrity to do it. Do you want someone who like, and maybe this is going to come off like sort of snobbish, and I don't mean it to, but just like, do you want someone who finds out about music that way, which seems to me like there's more of a disposability to it, where it's like maybe for a second it captures their attention because they think something you did was clever or funny, but you're not like
Mhm.
gonna, be a lifetime fan or whatever, versus somebody who, you know, um, goes to like one of these, music festival things that we play around town, right? Who kind of
Yeah.
stumbles in to this weird ass bar that we're playing at 11:30 at night, 6 beers deep, wandering around this weird Polish city, where you're like,
Yeah.
what's this? And then the next thing you know, like you got someone like right in your face, like fucking rocking out to you, like what do you, I'd take the latter, any day of the week.
Totally. That's the stuff that like gives me the fuel, right? It's like those moments where you can kind of connect with people is really cool. And
Yeah.
it's something that I'm aware of is a unique feature of us, people
Mhm.
that are playing or performing in front of others. Like there's a boundary there that is really weird. I talked to my wife about it, or my mom, or whatever it is. It's a weird thing that we've kind of grown into expecting in these moments. But like for other people, it's like it's so foreign to them.
Mhm. Yeah.
But that moment is really cool, and I love when it
Is
happens. And when it does, that connection is more important than just a click for me.
Yeah, for sure. It gives you fuel, it gives you fire, it gives you that which you desire, if you
It
will.
does. It
Well,
does.
Joe, it's been awesome having you on this show. I do have to ask, because this is about turning people on to new stuff, is there anything that you're like into that you feel like is kind of under the radar that you think people should like listen to or check out? It doesn't even have to be music, it could be a book or, movie or whatever.
Well, this book is excellent. John Count's book,
Oh yeah. Shout out
right?
my
Shout
high
out to
school,
John.
my John and I went to high school together.
I just as far as music, I think like right now, the thing that I've been listening to a lot in the car, I listen to a lot of James Brown at home, and then
Cool.
I
Yeah.
listen in the car with the
Love that.
kids to Turnstile. Like me and my
Yeah.
boys are
Fun.
totally into Turnstile right now.
Hmm.
So my free time is kind of like my listening time right now is on those two. So Turnstile's as new as I'm getting, which I don't know. I need to
Yeah,
go
dude.
newer.
They're
Send
fun,
me your
man.
recommends.
Oh man. Dude, honestly, like for the past year, I don't, I've like, I mean, I listen to rock music, but like
Mhm.
I I've listened to less rock music and more non-rock music in the last year or two than I have in my entire life. Like,
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
I've always like dipped my toe into like certain things, like, I mean, I had like like a indie rap phase, like maybe in college where you're kind of like finding out about, like Aesop Rock or Cannibal Ox or something like that, and you're like, oh, Dalek or something. You're like, this is weird, cool, like odd rap,
Yeah.
But like for the most part, I've listened to like the same 60s to 90s rock, indie
Yeah.
rock,
Yeah.
whatever, for my whole life. And like I started getting into more like um like world music and stuff. Like I'm
Mhm.
really into Afrobeat
Mhm.
right now. Like this
Yeah.
dude Fela Kuti,
Oh, dude,
who's
totally,
like
of course.
incredible, and like kind of all the like
I've got a photo
Nigerian
that
stuff.
Lenny Sinclair took of Fela at the Detroit show hanging up. I
Oh,
found it
so
like at the
cool.
frame store that's right at the end of your block.
Oh, right on. Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. I wish, do they have another one?
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, just shit like that. Like just, being sort of more open to jazz and open to like, new jazz. And like there's this guy Jeff Parker who's in Tortoise that he made a record a couple years ago that I've been listening to a ton. That's just like put on and just kind of like vibe out, But just going to
Yeah.
record stores and like buying things that are like kind of like odd or, like a little left of what I might normally gravitate towards, which is
Do you
like
still,
punk and
like,
Indian
take
stuff.
a choice on record stores? Like, do you still go and say, like, "This cover looks cool, I'm gonna buy it"?
Sometimes, yeah, like I've been doing that a
Yeah.
lot more lately, especially with like the like Afrobeat, like Nigerian stuff, because the cover art is always awesome. Like nine
Yeah.
times out of 10, it's like the coolest shit you've ever seen. And so it's like, there's no way this could be bad. And it never is. It's
Yeah.
always sick. It's always like,
That's awesome.
whether it's like a compilation or whatever, there's this like disco, like 70s, I think it's called doing it in Lagos. It's like a
Uh-huh.
Nigerian disco pop comp.
Did
That
they
like
do it?
they fucking did it, dude.
Did they
They
do it?
do
They
it.
did, okay.
They really do. And the cover is like this weird, it's so cool. It's like this gold and shiny like black cover of this like silhouette of like almost like a Sammy Davis Jr. like looking dude. It's just like super rad. Like it looks like it would be like on the napkin of like an old jazz bar or something. It's just really cool.
That's cool.
Like so it's like shit like that where you see it and you're just like, this has to be
Gotta have
awesome.
it.
And it is.
Yeah.
So anyways, those are my recs. But okay, last question. You're in an elevator, somebody finds out you're in a band, you have
Oh, no.
to give them the pitch. Why
My
should they check
nightmare.
you out? Yeah, everybody's nightmare. Why should that person listen to Touch the Clouds?
Oof. Do I get an age range in this person? Or is this for
So
all humanity? All humanity is in the elevator with me.
it's a newborn baby. Go.
Oh boy. I think that like our band really tries to present uh, a dynamic emotional experience
Mhm.
that I think requires you to sit with it and listen to it. I think that, like you said, it's a painting. I think that's a very apt way to describe it. I
Mhm.
think it's something I want you to sit in front of and contemplate as it moves through you.
Mhm.
So that's what I would say. We're a full human experience band.
I love it. Dude, I mean, the world needs that right now, if I could say. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yes, of course. If you, the listener, want to give Joe's music a listen, you can go to Bandcamp. It's touchtheclouds.bandcamp.com. You can check out their Instagram. It's at Touch the Clouds Music. They have a Facebook, facebook.com/touch the clouds music as well. There it's probably touchtheclouds.com, or what's your website?
.net.
Oh shit. You have to go to the
.net.
you're gonna have to go to the worldwide net to check out this website. So be
Make sure you
prepared.
have a malware blocker.
Yeah, please. Everybody get one ASAP and get a generator too, and probably some extra food.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but yeah, dude, Joe, it was so nice having you. So good to like talk to you for an extended period of time and not kind of in
Yeah, I
between
appreciate it.
loud noises and things like that. So I'm sure we'll play together again. I don't even
Very
know when
soon.
the next time is, but it's probably very soon. I love you. I love your bandmates. Thank you for being here, man. Appreciate it.
Back at you. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good night, dude. See ya.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.